There is an element in storytelling that is key to stories. I've probably talked about it before, but um, it's called foreshadowing. Foreshadowing in a story is where you plant seeds that are going to flower or show themselves later in the story. The oldest example of it is if you plant a gun in the first act, it will go off in the third act. And it creates a kind of tension, a kind of underlying element in the storytelling that is difficult because as a viewer, there is a sense of dread often, if that's the foreshadowing. Usually it's a darker force because it engages, it pulls you in. And when it pulls you in, you have a lot more attention, a lot more investment, a lot more, moment to moment concern about how things will go, a prayer, if you will, that they'll go better and that the gun will never go off, that somehow fate, God, love, something will come through that will save the day. And of course, sometimes it does. Uh, uh, one of the great the great lessons of the third act of any movie is the unexpected transformation of the main character, the person who's going through the movie, who you're caring about, who you're rooting for, somebody like you. And you don't want you to get shot. You don't want you to get harmed, and you don't want the people around you to get harmed. And yet you see the handwriting on the wall, the foreshadowing. Something's going to happen. And that creates something that I used to, with my friends, describe as FFA. It's called free floating anxiety. And it is something that manifests sometimes during a movie or a show or story, but usually it's resolved by the storytelling. And we're all very used to Hollywood endings, things working out, something coming through that ennobles the main character and allows us to go, oh, I get it. You learn a lesson. I always refer to, and probably have multiple times, the end of Star Wars, where Luke Skywalker is trying to control the battle zone with his technology, all of his helmets and his screens, and it's not working. And it's like all of his preparation, all of his years of quote whatever you want training are not there, and he's at a loss, and he's going to fail, and the he's not going to save the planet, and he has to blow up the Death Star, and he doesn't have the skill set anymore. It just isn't available. And then a voice comes through from somewhere very deep inside him. And it's Han Solo, not Han Solo. That's my brain going. Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan. Thank you all. It's Obi-Wan. And his voice says, use the Force, Luke. Use the Force. And Luke takes off his helmet. He takes off all of his technology, all of his mindful stuff. He takes off everything that he's been training to use and to do to help save the world, and it's not working. And he listens to the powerful energy inside himself. He trusts the Force, and he aims the gun in some way guided by higher forces, and the Death Star is destroyed. And I relate all of that very simply to the fact that we are in a moment of time where there is a lot of foreshadowing about the future. I don't love doing political talks, and I really kind of think probably I shouldn't. But This was a very interesting week in which a lot of things erupted in the news cycles that foreshadows, without our knowing what exactly, but nothing necessarily good, that life is possibly going to become darker, more confrontational, more difficult to navigate. And that can and very likely has already begun to initiate the FFA, the free floating anxiety that rises up in all of us. And I don't want to exclude myself from that equation, because if you're looking to somebody who's risen above it and is free of all of that stuff, you're not listening to the right person. And and you can switch off at any time. I'm totally happy for you to go to people who know the answers. Go out, go find them. There are people who claim that truth. I do not claim it. I can only tell you I have been practicing a work that allows me to possibly trust the force, Luke. And that's what I try to do. I try to trust the force as best I can. And I do know that the world we are moving toward right now is being foreshadowed in fairly dark terms. Terms of difficulty and struggle, where the idea of quote unquote truth may be hard to find. You may be watching that already on the newscasts. If you watch the newscasts, people are speaking things that are not true. Multiples of people. Truth is becoming very malleable, and that is a danger zone for human beings. That assumes there is a truth out there, and I think all of us sort of kind of know there is. That truth is trust the force, Luke. But how do you get in touch with the force? If you don't have Obi-Wan to help guide you into that, what do you do? Well, you get lost. Battles ensue. People do terrible things to each other. Life gets very chaotic, because there's no guiding principle, or the guiding principle is totally in the zone of non-truth, which you now disguise as truth, and it makes life very hard to navigate. And we are all entering a zone right now, I think. I don't want to be a prognosticator of terror and terrible things, but it don't look good, guys. Whatever is going on is complicated right now. And we are entering into that field of confusion and discomfort and fear, probably, and anxiety and darkness. First of all, let me say darkness is part of the equation. It has always been part of the equation. And I will tell you, there is a great deal to be learned from light and illumination and rising into the glory of the sunrise and the beauty of illumination. But there is also a lot to learn in the descent into darkness. Darkness is not a separation from the totality of existence. Darkness is a part of this equation. And when Luke has to deal with the dark star, and I'm maybe messing up the name of what it was called, but I will tell you, he was dealing with darkness. And darkness was in the world, and he had to get rid of all of his technology and all of his knowing and all of his training and let it go and trust something very deep and still pointed in him, the force. There are dark times in the world. One of them was when there was something called the Roman Empire. And it was really dark. If you think this is a strange time, that was really disturbing. That was a time where if you disagreed with the Roman government, they nailed you to a cross on the road. And people had to drive by looking at people hanging on the road. Sorry to upset your vision of stillness and simplicity and beauty here, but that really went on in the world. That was part of life. Of course, you didn't want to be on that cross, and so you did everything you could to hide in the darkness of the whatever corner you could find and just try to live your life and pretend all that stuff wasn't going on. But it was around us. It was around part of the human equation. And yet, in the middle of that, there arose a man who decided to try to speak truth to power. And his truth, and I'm not going to be able to present all of that in the equation that we're going to right now, but his truth was basically be kind. Treat others as you treat themselves, as you would treat yourself. The whole Christian teaching was a little guy. I don't know how big he was, but he walked around and decided to speak the truth. And he did it at the risk of his well-being, for sure, and his life. And he found people who wanted to hear it, who wanted to hear, share your kindness, share your love for each other, share your being. And it was so vital for people that when he sat on the mountain and talked to all these masses on the Sermon on the Mount, he brought people into cohesion, into a sense that there is a humanity that exists, that holds hands, that can hold hands, that can serve one another. And that was a great, great comfort to people who were so frightened of the dark forces all around them. The great force of community, the great force of love, the great force of connectivity. That is the thing that was really being spoken of. And it is the thing that will keep us all going at this moment in time. We need to gather to be together. We need to share this deeper truth, which is not complicated. Be nice, be good. But you also need to know how to get down into that space. You need to know how to get into the space where the free floating anxiety is not manipulating you all day long, or if it is, you learn how to dance with it. And so you have to, if you're lucky, find a mechanism, a practice of stillness, of descent, if you will, into your core being and find what is there, because that is where the voice of Obi-Wan, the voice of God, the voice of Christ, the voice of the great teachers of all time comes from. This deep space, and it says, trust the force, Luke. Trust the force. And if you don't hear that voice, you will find yourselves caught in the dilemmas of what do I do now? The mind trying to solve problems. The mind is not enough. The mind is a superficial, higher level part of your being. It's good and it's important, but you need to ground it in heart, emotion, inner being, and life, and then in the knowing that comes in the pit of your belly, of your stomach. And then you have to get all of these forces working together so they can guide you and you can hear when the force speaks. This really is the journey for all of us. And I have to say, problematically, this is the time you got to figure it out. If you think the foreshadowing that we're seeing right now is leading us into peace and love and easy journeying, I probably, as a screenwriter, would say you're misguided. We're going into a difficult, struggling time. Maybe it'll be put off for a while. Maybe it won't happen. I mean, that would be, of course, the rooting interest of every movie. But it may be leading us into a period of real difficulty and a place where we need to find the capacity in ourselves to go deep, find that simple truth, find the force, and live accordingly. Person to person, one on one, two on two, however you do it, in a community of people who care about each other and serve each other. That community, that certainly what we have right now, could come under attack. That's the real fear for me, is that having this kind of exchange that we're having uh, on Zoom may be monitored at some point, and anybody who connects to things, talks like this, may be under threat. I don't mean to create drama here, but I'm just telling you Hollywood versions of the story. And you may not be able to attend this class or any class. But what can you attend? I will tell you. The journey inside is private, it's simple, and it's extraordinary, and it takes you to a place of knowing and a place of involvement and a place of engagement that is profound and really important for all of us to be able to discover in terms of the world we are moving into. Now, the thing I have to say, and this is really important, is you're a human being trying to become a spiritual being who transcends all of this. Great. If you can pull that off, I've never met anybody truly who has, but if you can pull that off, God bless, that's an extraordinary thing. But you are going to find probably that you are human. And that FFA, free floating anxiety, is going to start rising up at any point in time. And it's either going to overtake you or it's going to become something that you use and work with, that you train to be part of, and you try to be bigger than the anxiety. Some days it will be fine, you'll figure it out. Some days you will really be in trouble. It will be difficult. And it can cause unbelievable pain. And I have been given the gift of an introduction to some of that pain, and it's really horrible. It's really horrible. And I feel the universe giving me insight into where the human mind can go in very, very difficult times. And I don't like it. It's really awful. And the thing that comes up to me is a kind of internal training that comes from years of practice. And it says, lean in, go toward the pain, go toward the suffering, go toward the fear, go toward the anxiety, because it has stuff to teach you about the human journey. It has a lot to teach you about what it means to be a human being. And if you think you're just here to escape that part of your life, to live in the life of sort of love of light and joy, God bless. I hope you can do it. All I want to tell you is if you can't and it gets really difficult, accept that, honor that. It is a deep, difficult, complicated life that we're all caught in, and it gets scary and hard. And there may be parts of it you don't want to go toward. And I will bring Jesus back into this for a moment because this is, you know, by reputation, the Son of God standing in the Garden of Gethsemane and saying, please take this cup from my mouth. He does not want to go into the darkness. He does not want to go into the crucifixion and all what happened caught by the Roman legions. He doesn't want that. And yet he knows that's what's coming. And he asks for help to not go there. Yes, I'm sure we all can do that. We maybe all will do that. But he had to go there. And in many ways, as you know, the Christian teaching is he went there for us. He went there because in the worst of the worst of the worst, he somehow found in the abandonment of his father, he found this teaching that went, forgive them for they know not what they do. And I find that to be one of the great teachings, and I've talked about it before, where you actually step inside your own heart and realize all you've got is the force of your own inner being, the force, really, that can turn your attention from the horror and darkness and fear of your own life and bring it as light and forgiveness to others. That is a great teaching. It's a great teaching. And I talk about that now because I don't know where the third act of our lives goes now. I do feel that it is going to be stressful and complicated. We may find our way out of it. You know, if it's a Hollywood ending, you know, come the election of this coming year, we'll all be fine. It could also be just the opposite. Whatever it is going to be, you have to have the training and this muscle that Rudy taught us about, which is not the muscle of holding on, which is going to only create more tension and drama. It's the muscle of letting go. It's a big muscle. It's a hard muscle to get to. You have to work it. You have to practice it. You have to let go on a daily basis. And as Rudy would say, go deeper and deeper and deeper. But if you think it's going to give you freedom and release from suffering, forget it. Forget it. There is no absolute freedom and release from suffering. You go through suffering 2, forgive them, they know not what they do. That is a passageway. That is an enormous passageway for every human being, and not everybody can do it. And if you're having a hard time, and if life is difficult, find other people and hold hands with them, hug them, find partners that you love, find a walk outside that allows you to look up at the sky and look up at the clouds and look at the trees and go, thank you. Thank you for this. And I will tell you the enormity for me of the force is that it is a force that ultimately is love. It ultimately is that. If you don't want to believe me, that's fine. If you think of that as a construct that's trying to sell you something, sorry about that. But my experience is in the darkness and in the depth of despair and the worst of the worst, the love starts to show itself as a speck of light that starts to fill the sky. I cannot speak with certainty, and I absolutely don't want to speak with certainty. And I am absolutely prepared for every one of you to go, okay, enough of Bruce. And I have the same feeling, enough of Bruce. But what I love is that this thing has nothing to do with Bruce. Nothing. It's absolutely something that I and Luke Skywalker have found. It's called the Force. Trust the Force. And that force, you can give it whatever name you want. I don't care the name you give it, but it is, in my humble experience, the ultimate foundational existence that we all come from, that we all live in, that we are part of, and that we do embrace if we want to navigate. You don't have to navigate, you can just lose yourself. But if you want to navigate the incredibly difficult, dark corners of the life that may be coming, and I will tell you, if nothing else, just going into the experience of dying, which is something we're all going to do, needs to be navigated as well. So these skill sets aren't just for the political universe we're moving into, it's for our private, personal universe that we all have to figure out how to move through. It's very challenging. And if you find the muscle and you find the core practice guiding you through it, you will know what to do. You will know how to turn left, turn right, move forward, turn around, stay still, now move. You'll have all those directives. They will all come to you, and they will be really helpful, really helpful. You will trust the force, Luke, and you will go forward. That's what we're here for. This class is just a kind of reinforcement of that. It's just a way to kind of help you with a muscle system that will help you get through tomorrow and maybe the next day and the next day, or at least the next 5 minutes. I wish you all the best with this because I know this is a tricky ride. And I know that I am touching on a daily basis some of that darkness because I'm a screenwriter and because I know when you present foreshadowing, I know often it's not pretty. But I also know I need to talk about it. Forgive me if this is not the talk you guys want to hear. So many people go to quote, spiritual teachers for, light and upliftment and all that. I'm just trying to bring it to the truth of the force that we need to work through life when it's beautiful and when it's hard, and it may be getting hard, so do the work. The end. And of course, I'm happy to take questions.
Bruce?
Yes, someone, whoever you are.
Dale.
Uh-huh.
This isn't a question.
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting here looking at the trees outside your window, and if I can show you what I'm facing. Can you see the trees outside my window?
I got the light coming through the window. The trees aren't showing up, but I trust you.
Oh. Anyway, it's a window full of trees. And what I'm aware of is that it's the same force, the same life-giving energy that's moving the trees in New York, that's moving the trees here, and that's moving the trees in Iran and Gaza and everywhere. And I think it gives us hope that force is beneficent and that it will prevail.
I'm on your side completely. I think hope is one of the great guiding principles of life. And I think it is what happens when you trust the force. The force, in many ways, has hope in it. It may not be hope about the exact, what can I say, manifestation of the moment, because sometimes hope is a longer trajectory. But I think ultimately, personally, that hope is rewarded in every possible way. I really do think this all ends in light and love. That's my feeling, and I can't see it otherwise. But I do think there's a journey to that, and sometimes you're going to have to go through parts of that journey and go, "Why me, God?" And the answer is, "Why not?" Because we
And I
all.
want to add that I wish all of the Christian churches could hear the sermon you just gave.
Well, that would be interesting. This weekend, by the way, bringing that up because I'm Jewish, is my granddaughter's bat mitzvah this coming weekend. And I bring that up for a lot of reasons because when I'm Jewish, Jesus was Jewish, and there's a certain kind of foundational Ten Commandments sort of theology governing a lot of us in the Western cultures. And I really do respond to that and respect it. But I have to say, as a result of my granddaughter's bat mitzvah, there will be no class next weekend because we will be celebrating. And so we will miss the California class and we will just skip it. And the week after will be another New York class. That's just so we keep things keep things moving, and keep everybody's calendar clear. So anyway, those of you who were planning to come next week, you got a weekend off. Enjoy. Do
I just
something.
have to say that the synchronicity here is just driving me crazy. I am here putting together some Star Wars cards that belonged to my nephew who died tragically in a hunting accident to give to my friend who is the showrunner of the new Star Wars show, Acolyte, which I'm going to go to their screening tomorrow night. And, as you're describing the story and how much it means to so many people, I feel like it's something that's so deep within us. It touches something so beyond just your intellect. It's, I think the whole show came from, I think Lucas said it was something like the hero with 1,000 faces inspired him. And, you really helped me today because I've just been through a lot of discord with my sister-in-law, and I walked into it instead of hiding from it. I could have hidden from it, but, the only way to clear it out is to address it and, go with the force, of love, of compassion, of I don't know what your pain is. I only know what my pain is. And I want to get rid of it. I want it to go away. I want it to float out.
I appreciate everything you're saying. I love, first of all, synchronicity because that's always extraordinary and does feel like that's how the universe works. It just speaks to you through synchronicities, and and I think facing the difficulties rather than hiding from them is important. I will say, bring love to the table where possible, and that's all. That's all you can do. If it's in your face, you be present and find a way to resolve the issues. We're all going to be facing that stuff, one way or another. Things they're percolating in a way. It's all going to be a lot more dynamic. So you need to find the stillness that allows you to move through that rather than I got to do this, I got to do that. I got to know how am I going to get that done. If you go into that space, you're going to be in deep trouble. So you got to go, whoop, okay, simple, forward, step at a time. That's how we have to live this through. And if there are conflicts in front of you, resolve them as best you can. Be kind, be gentle, and let the life that tries to guide you guide whoever you need to conflict with. And it can be very helpful. And if it doesn't, onward, you move forward. But thanks for sharing the synchronicity. I think that's meaningful. Anybody else?
Bruce,
Yes.
I've listened to all of your talks that you've published on YouTube, and a few times you've said something that's very encouraging. And it's basically that no matter how closed and tight and like a rock someone is, you find a way to get through some little cracks or through the back door so that the force gets to them? I'm asking for a friend, of course. Can you just affirm that it always comes through, even if the person is closed?
Yes, it always comes through.
Okay.
Absolutely. There is, Bruce has no clue. I don't know how to do it at all, but I sit still and the force tells me what to do. Again, it's like when Luke takes off all the armor and the force just says, this, aim it, and he destroys the Death Star. There's a way in to every human being. Mostly all the guarded places you can't get through. It's the unguarded. It's the place they don't even know that's there. And if you sit with somebody long enough, you see where they're not defended. You just see it, you feel it, and you just go in through that crack. Or you can also create what but I experience as presence. Presence is a completely enveloping space that we're all in, but most people don't know it. It's like part of everyday life, but they're not aware of it. If you're aware of presence, which is kind of like an expression of love that fills a space, that love, when it goes out there, knows what to do. You intellectually don't have to do anything. Just be the presence and trust that it will find the way into where things have to go. And my experience with various people who I sit with who are normally very closed and difficult is this presence always ends up with a sweet atmosphere at the end of whatever is going on, a luncheon, a dialogue, a phone call. Something happens because you were present. It's not judgmental. It's not thought. It's really heart chakra. But it also, if you're really connected, it's heart chakra, mind chakra, the navel chakra, all working together to envelop a person. And then they will feel it because it knows how to go in. It finds the secret ways. If you're a teacher, you will find yourself guided into helping do that more directly, if you will. It's more specific, but it's very powerful, and it really does open people. And it's a gift. I have no idea how it works. All I can tell you is when I teach, I feel like Beethoven hearing the beginning of the Ninth Symphony. Da 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 da, and it goes this way, and it goes this way, and it goes that way, and it's so beautiful. And I can hear the melodic, the nature of it, the chords being struck, and I'm told via that musical, non-verbal thing, how to make something work in another person. It's really extraordinary. And when I'm done teaching, I'm just Bruce trying to get through the day. It's a gift that came out of Rudy, out of years of work, out of the LSD experience, out of whatever it is. Something came through that allows this to take place. We're all capable of it. And everybody in this class who's been here for all of these months or years is on their way to being of service to other people. That's our biggest objective. Not to make us happy and content and feeling like, well, I've got it and you don't. It's the opposite. It's I have it and you can have it too. And not even I have it, because I have it. It's very temporary. It is, period. It is. And it's all of us, and we're all in it together.
So, Bruce, may I share something?
Yes.
So, I'm not quite sure what's going to come out, but first of all, I want to say thank you. That probably what's going to come are some tears, because one of my dearest friends passed away last night. But it was absolutely beautiful and hard. And things that you remind us each week is just the importance of doing the work, to be ready so that when you're needed, you have what you need to be available. And I felt that so much because several weeks ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, because time has changed, because when you know someone's passing, you know how time becomes very. And she didn't want me to be part of the circle. She had 8 people who were her primary caretakers, but there was a day when she asked to see me, and I went up there. She lives in Maine, so it was a 2-hour drive, and I went up there. It was like I flew. And I didn't know what I was going to say. I thought I was going to comfort her. Instead, she wanted to be sure I was okay. that I was okay with her going. And one of her primary caretakers said to me, also a dear friend, said to me, you know, we're cracking open. We're going to be so cracked open, and it's going to be so beautiful. We don't know what the gifts are, but one of the gifts that came to me today was how differently I was able to be in class with you because she cracked me open. And what you just said about the importance of being with the people where you are, and you don't even know what you're doing sometimes or how you can help. But if you show up and if you prepare yourself to show up in the way that being with this work and working eye to eye with somebody invites you to do, and dropping the fear, like the story that comes up, oh my God, he's staring at me. You know, it's literally like, as you know, my husband taught class. He sat with you and he taught class, and he literally had somebody get up once out of class, a new person, because they couldn't bear to be looked at. So we're practicing being looked at. I feel like, I mean, you were there standing in for whatever it is that's greater. I mean, for me, I call her the goddess, but you were there standing in, bringing it, you know, like you're like an antenna. I feel like that. You're an antenna and you're intensifying it, and then you give it to us, you share it with us. Or it's not like you give it, it's just you're open. And so I guess this is a long way of saying that I know each week you're like, I don't know why I'm here, you know, I don't need to be here. But I'm very grateful that you are here.
Angela, thank you. I am also I'm grateful to be an antenna, and I think if one can keep it at that level, it explains things best. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry about your friend, and I do know that death awakens all of us one way or another, and we're all heading in that direction. And it's amazing how many people are looking everywhere else but that, when it's the one absolute truth in front of us. And it does awaken us. It really does teach us. Anyway, I'm gonna stop this now because I think we talked a lot. But I love you all. Thank you for showing up. Again, no class next week, and the week after we'll be back into the collective here. Thank you so much.